organization supports your performance and won't let you down. Your metrics will encourage investment and your narrative will talk to your stakeholders. When you're done, you'll have a resilient business set to thrive in the new reality, and you'll be playing your part to make the world a more sustainable, fairer, and better place for everyone. It's the right thing to do.
Everybody remembers that it's the right thing to do, right? That's what you remember. But it's a serious discussion point. You know, ESG is something that is really huge in the global economy. If you speak to anybody in real estate in Ghana, there are a few things that they may tell you. One would include no proper access to financing, correct? Right? The second one could be, issues with title for the land, correct? Third one could be finding proper skilled people in country to do some of the sophisticated construction that is out there. All these things, if you follow the ESG discussion points clearly, you see that it gives you a company that focuses on ESG. You will be able to get over the hump of some of these emerging challenges that we typically, deal with. A critical part of it is the stakeholders that are involved in this whole ESG thing. And let me just take the first point on access to financing being a challenge. Lenders and customers, the two are now increasingly looking for more responsible companies to work with. So if you, as an organization, don't understand what they're looking out for, you will be missing a lot of opportunities. Customers with the power to buy are looking for responsible entities to buy from, to work with. So it's quite holistic. It's not something that it becomes like a checkbox exercise that you do. So in the whole ESG discussion, what I like most that I want people to take away with is the impact. The question is, what is your impact? When it comes to environmental, I think it is very common to us. We've had this environmental points have been discussed for a long time. And again, it is very simple as what do we do? How does it impact the world? The way we throw things out, the way we manage our trash, the kind of construction we do, what is the impact on the world? Social, yes, it's not too foreign to us, but it's probably not as popular as environmental, but then what is our contribution to our community? How do we make sure that everybody is okay? How do we not profit at the expense of others? The third one is probably the one that is not as popular, but emerging because, and the reason why it's emerging so fast is because it drives and ensures that the two actually works. And it's the governance part of how businesses are run and how people manage their affairs. So if you see the summary that says, how do we conduct ourselves? That's what drives everything we do. Now, why is this ESG thing so popular now? Why? Is there a reason why ESG has become so popular now? There are clear signs that if we don't go on this trajectory, as individuals, as companies, as countries, eventually we'll pay a lot for it. And I think we're paying for it already. So most responsible entities and individuals are now pursuing this ESG significantly. In our traditional sense of business, we've used finance, my profit, my MPL, this to manage or assess how well we are doing. ESG said that no. Let's look at how better we are to society. So you see that the standards that we are out there, I mean, really are not look always about financial. They look at non-financial metrics to assess as an organization how well you're doing. The point I like so much, which, I mean, as human beings, we always want things to be proven to us, is that companies that follow these principles are typically more resilient in the face of crisis because they plan, because they understand what they are doing and where they are going. And this is a huge point. Another point that it's so crucial to note is that ESG is new. So unlike accounting and other principles in finance, there aren't many standards out there. There are a few, but even with those few that they have, they require you as an entity to understand what to measure under these three bullets. I mean, these three bullets have been put together to put some sort of structure around that discussion. So what may be some of the impacts ESG ratings may do for an entity? The point is that as an organization, you should seek to rate yourself and be rated. That performance matrix, what are the things that you should look out for? If you are rated properly, if you are rated highly, what will be some of the benefits for you as an entity? These are some of the discussion points. The first one I wanted to look at is if you are not considering climate risk in your business strategy, in what you do, this will drop your ratings. Natural resource depletion. All of us, no matter what we do, we use natural resources. We should ask ourselves, how did I get this suit to wear? Something about nature got depleted. How do I ensure that it was done in a responsible way as an individual? Renewable energy. I went to California, I think last year or so, and I was blown away the number of electric cars that I mean, the charging stations all over the malls. Do we have an electric charging station in Ghana? Ben, what sort of investments are we making in green initiatives? As an entity, are we conscious about that? What sort of light bulbs do we have in our offices? In our bathrooms? What doors are we using? What sort of cleaning materials are we using in our offices? Locally sourced supply chain. Are we recycling? Or we just drink the water bottle and drink the water and throw the bottle away? What else can it do for us? What sort of policy do we have? A part of the discussion that is always interesting is when customers start demanding from us to be responsible. What sort of value do customers place on the products and services we buy? Are we perceived better because we as an entity are more responsible? Data privacy issues. This is going to bring your rating down. People are very, 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 very sensitive about data now. Although some people too are some sort of ignorant about it, so they don't understand how data is being captured from them. But people who are going to measure you are going to look at how you are protecting data. What sort of social investments are you making with your activities within your business? On the governance piece, how proactive are you with compliance? Are you tax compliant? Nobody wants to pay tax, but are you at least aware of what you should pay and how you should pay it? What's your recruitment policy? Is your board diverse enough? Can people speak up in your organization? When it comes to fair pay and compensation, as I said, under the G, these are some of the things that are not so popular. But as an entity, how fair do you pay people? I'm not so sure about some of you here, but there's a growing trend where critical mindsets are leaving us for other organizations or other countries. What sort of government lobbying do you do? Do you do lobbying to improve what we do as a country or as individuals, or do you do lobbying to bring down some of the things that are not so good for the country? Are you involved in scandals? Anything that people can question you? And in this country, it's not easy to go free. All these things will be measured, and you as an organization must have an internal measure to measure that and put out a statement proactively to say that this is what I'm doing right. This is why I am good for business. This is why I'm good for society. And this is my impact. You should be bold to say that because you should know what you're doing across the E, the S, and the G. And the promise I'm making to you is that entities that do this are more sustainable in crisis. They are more valuable. And value is better than profit in the long term. And this must be understood. In the short term, you may make some profits. But if you think about long-term sustainability, what you recognize is that your value as an entity may go down. So we're going to touch on the real estate financing in Ghana. I think for all of you here, I don't need to speak too much about why real estate is so big in Ghana, or about housing deficits and all these things. These numbers you've dealt with, and that's why you are in this industry. Correct? And with today's emerging economic issues, the volatility, in Ghana, the real volatility has been with our exchange rates. But if you look at prices, it keeps going like this. A house that was selling for 200,000 within a year or two sells for double, and the demand is there. Ghana is definitely a hub for good business. Ghana is a hub that needs serious infrastructure, and therefore, if you're in real estate in Ghana, you're in a good place. And I don't think I need to belabor that point. Now, some of the main challenges, and as I alluded to, has to do with financing, right? So the question is, how do we improve that whole process? No bank or no responsible investor will just pick money and give it to you without assuring themselves that you are going to be, first of all, able to pay back if their focus is on finance, and pay back at the right rate. That's if they are focused on finance. But when it comes to sustainable financing, what they are actually looking for is slightly different. Here in Ghana, we have mortgages, which not very popular. Even if you look at the structures of documentation that sometimes are required to do it, people don't qualify this, and banks are not so much matured with regards to doing interesting sorts of financing. They're very plain vanilla financing in this country. It's very difficult to even get banks to collaborate on deals. I mean, it's not something that they want to do, because there are people who are willing to take those vanilla transactions and they make good money on it. So why should they get into all these complicated transactions? I mean, the constraints for me are clear. We're speaking about the collateral issues that we have here, pricing issues. Because of data issues, banks are not able to price accurately because the risk profile of companies are typically not easily determinable. And ideally, what they should do is they should be able to risk profile you properly to give the right rate. But unfortunately, there's one rate slapped on everybody. There isn't enough information to assess your credit. Your credit history is typically not even existent. So I spoke about the weak regulation, and therefore people sometimes presume that just because a bank has your collateral, they are okay. Banks are not in business to sell property, so they don't want the loan to go bad. So they don't really care about your collateral. So all this poses challenges for the industry. And I think the evolution is the whole green financing. I mean, what is needed? There's so much demand for property, and that's why all of you, as I said earlier, now the need to integrate ESG and climate risk into real estate is something that is real and something that will be super beneficial to all of us. Because in simple terms, there's so much structured resources out there willing to invest in the right people and companies that will be able to provide the right information for that investment. You've heard about green bonds, green financing. This is it. Now, how do you as an entity or individual position yourself to be able to tap into that? With this integration, the first and simple benefit will be easier and cheaper access to funding. The second point, which I want us to also look at, is the efficient use of energy and therefore the impact on all of us. It improves the total value. If you listen to the video, the stakeholders are many. You have your regulators, you have your shareholders, you have your customers, you have your employees who are looking for better organizations to work for. So as an industry, as we adopt these things, we are clearing off some of our major challenges when it comes to staff, because you will be positioned to pay them better. You position to pick the best mix of people. The last point there is very interesting. I'm not sure if you can see. It says investors and developers failing to incorporate ESG are failing their fiduciary responsibilities. Because we all have a fiduciary responsibility to have a better impact on the world. And this is a major point. Now, how do we do this? The first step as an entity is to develop your ESG strategy. In very simple terms, what is that? It's a clear plan articulated by a board that tells you who, how, when to do things that will help you to give the best impact. Now, how do you put together this plan? You have to first of all start by assessing the material risk and opportunities, because as all of you are business oriented, no matter what I'm saying with regards to not looking at so much of financial, at the end of the day, you must focus on value. So you need to look out for what is material, what is important. Where are some of the opportunities for me to tap into to improve my impact? What are some of the risks, and what can I do to mitigate that risk? We have to look at developing an ESG and climate strategy based on materiality value assessment. It's about value. What sort of value at the end of the day am I going to get? And it's typically not short term, it's typically long term. If you're a company that's about sustainability, you need to adopt ESG. You have to set your own internal climate targets. As I said, no matter what regulation you're using, you still need to have your own internal parameters working for you, giving you the strength and the ability to say that I'm making the right impact. What sort of things should you look out for? Now, moving on to the blue box, talking about more the execution in terms of, and we've grouped them into the developers, owners, investors, and also some financiers. And I think the base selection of benchmarks in terms of the green property ratings is something that you need to look out for. The point about active ownership, that's to select managers with proven active approaches to get these things done. If you look at equity investors who are able to engage you with that whole essence of proxy voting, but more importantly, look at diversified ways of financing your projects. In Ghana, we are too traditional in terms of financing. So as an entity, how do you look out for some of these interesting ways to finance? And this should all be in your execution of your ESG strategy. Now, for investors, you must, as a matter of necessity, include in your due diligence process how entities and borrowers are looking at ESG. We're going to look at some of the things that are happening in Ghana very, very shortly, and you see that even the central bank is pushing for banks to go into green. You must have a clear set target for the community and what impact you as an investor seek to make, what your funds will be doing. It must be very clear to you. Should be very transparent with regards to how you've been able to follow the funds, how they've been used. Some of these initiatives include looking at the subcontractors that are used, how again, not just sitting back, but making sure that there is a proactive measure to give you comfort on how those funds are used. Very similar to the direct investors, you have to look out and reward entities that are making the right impact. And you need monetary mechanisms to ensure that you have clarity around where your money is going. And that you can take a step back to say that you as an entity have the right impact. Advisors and consultants selection must go through this same robust process. Everything I'm saying here is very simple. A lot of slides, a lot of points, but the point I'm making on this slide is that for all the stakeholders in the value chain, you must have a clear plan that you follow to identify how you impact society, especially the resources that you generate or the value that you generate. And having the ability to collect the right data and the systems to track and monitor those things to give you comfort. Because you can't be making statements without the evidence that, in fact, this is what is happening. Market engagement is very important. Again, making sure that the market understands that. One of the challenges with ESG in Ghana is that consumers are not yet educated properly to demand these things. And as we mature, this will change very, very fast. Very, very fast. Because as human beings, we want to be rewarded. This is an interesting slide. I spoke to you about the fact that there's a lot of good money sitting out there looking for responsible entities. And an example of this is to show that sustainable green deals issued globally, 2018 was 250 million compared to 2020. Have you seen a spike of growth? A lot is happening. Maybe not in Ghana, but a lot is happening. 700 billion. Any mathematicians here? Can you do the calculation of the percentage growth? Huge growth. Within 2 years. So you can imagine what 2022 will be like, what 2028 will be like, and what are you doing about it? Is the question. I like this slide so much. The bottom piece of the slide, the essence of those bullet points, and again, you're going to get all the slides, so no problem at all, is that everybody must be responsible for this to work. You require responsible investments, responsible banking, responsible corporate finance, and responsible public finance. The notion of impact cannot leave your mind. You can make money, no doubt, but you must make it the right way, with the right impact. If you didn't hear anything I said today, this is it. You can make money, but make it with the right impact, because if you do that, in the long term, you are more sustainable and you have more rigor for crisis. Green bonds, you've heard about it. There's just so much green. I'm not here to teach you about green bonds and all that, but the point I want to make to you is that your industry is ripe to adopt these ESG principles. And it's like everything else. It's like driving. You cannot start driving today and become a race car driver tomorrow. You need to start from somewhere, be clear about your strategy, be clear about your impact, and evolve accordingly with regards to the standards you are keeping for yourself. there's something called the green bond principle, which is a very strong principle supporting all this green financing. And again, it has four main components. I mean, which I think I've spoken about a bit, is about being very clear in these bonds projects, being very clear about how the funds will be used. That's crucial. What will be used for. The process of evaluation. How do you evaluate, and what scores do you give to companies making the right impact or individuals making the right impact? What framework, what processes exist to manage the proceeds? When people are making an application, the application typically sounds better than how they will actually use it. So you need to assure yourself that you are comfortable with the process with which the process will be managed. The internal control framework that exists to give you comfort on that. And the fourth principle is the reporting. Being able to report the right things to give you that proactive sense to take action if needed. So in developing your ESG strategy, you need to consider these principles, because if you are going for green bonds or any sort of green financing, you need to understand that these are the things that will be looked out for, and you need to prepare accordingly. In Ghana, yes, I'm not sure we need to be, we are where we need to be with regards to green financing, but there's still some trend, there's still some activities. I mean, Ghana is gearing towards a 2 billion sustainable bond issue. 2 billion is still a lot of money. Ghana launched the first country financing roadmap for SDG initiatives in Africa. There is if you've not seen this document, please take a look at it. It's a very interesting one. I was told by one of my colleagues this morning that it's been an updated one. KPMG worked on the first one that was issued. Now here there's been an update. It's a good document. What it's trying to do is to map how the SDGs will be financed. Ghana signed up to become a member of the UN's page. Basically, there is a clear interest in getting to this. And the last one is Climate Investment Fund, which has been set up. Now, do we know about this? What are the benefits? One of the things in this country that I always find interesting is that there's so much that exists that so little know about. I don't know if it's the communication protocol, if it's the change management protocols, but there's a lot that exists that people can benefit from that they're not even aware of. And not knowing is not an excuse. I mean, some of the enterprise level initiatives that we've seen, which really tells us that this ESG is something that we can be hopeful about, or this green transition is something that we can be hopeful about, includes EcoBank's issuance of sustainability notes. I mean, which is really impressive. AFC's issuing some green bonds. AFDB and GCB have signed a credit facility on renewable energy and energy efficiency. And these are things that are happening locally. How are you playing in that? What discussions are you having with your banks with regards to tapping into some of these financing? Why would AFD sign anything with GCB? Because there's probably demand for it. Sunref Partners, Cowbank for green investments. Sunref partnering Cowbank demonstrates that there is demand in the system for it, because no bank will take its resources to go just to sign agreements for signing's sake. Now, this is my favorite topic, the greenwashing. as we are speaking to you about green, as you've been empowered about green, some of you will be excited to really see what it is, and also clearly want to be responsible or want to show it. But then what we've seen is that, or what has been established globally, is that some entities just do greenwashing just for the sake of it. And if you are caught, it's even worse because you damage your reputation completely. As an entity, if you've lied once, you are assumed to be lying forever. So some of the things they do is, and it's quite, I mean, there are 10 strategies that have been outlined here, very simple, using very vague languages to make claims of what they've done. Instead of saying that I've done 600 metric tons of this, they'll say, oh, we reduced this. So you can't measure it. It's not traceable. Says green products versus dirty company. So you are using energy efficient bulbs, you are doing all these things, but then your company itself, you're doing certain things that are not good. You have to align both your internal and your external. You can't put things out there that are good and then internally you do certain things that are not good. And you can't do things internally that are good and then go out there and sell things that are not impactful for the society. Suggestive imagery, images that present that products are being environmentally friendly but yet are not. Using certain colors and giving images an impression. Irrelevant claims. People make big statements. I'm exceeding this, we are the number 1 this in the world, number 10, saying things that you can't validate. I'm best in class, boast. We are greener than everybody. Your partners, one of the biggest risks today, if you look at any risk management framework or any risk management profile, is third-party risk. You have to be careful who you associate with. You have to do your due diligence. Third-party risk is the number 1 risk, not cyber. If you're going to be dealing with a bank who's going to give you green financing, you need to check them out to make sure that they have no credibility issues. Using jargons that people can understand. As this one is interesting. Paid brand endorsement. So you use celebrities to say things for you, but you know that you cannot support it. In all this, the point is that it's about show me the money. Are you really doing it? And can you be factual and accurate about what you're doing? Instead of trying to mislead people. Again, no proof, no evidence, and sometimes just outright lies. They know what you want to hear, so they'll tell you that. We've done a lot of work in this country for some entities who've taken loans, and because of their ESG compliance, they get significant cuts in rates. We've done that, and we do those audits here in Ghana. And when we do these audits, we check for everything. So if you're lying, it comes back to you. So, in a nutshell, for me, I think my submission has been very simple, and the focus has been on, 1, we all understand that real estate is a good industry to be in. Because as a country, we have significant infrastructure deficits. The country is stable, the country has a lot of attraction, and this is going to continue. There's some clear challenges. One major one has to be with financing. ESG is not only emerging for the real estate industry, it's emerging for everything you do. And as an industry, the earlier you adopt and inculcate these principles of ESG into your business, you become more valuable in the long term. If you didn't hear anything I said today, please underline value, not profit. Long-term sustainable value is what we are discussing. And I said to you that I like the word impact. You should be able to stand up as a woman, a man, and say that we have made the right impact to the environment. We have made the right impact to society. And we have made the right impact with regards to our structures. We are properly structured and we do things the right way. So thank you very much for listening to me. And I'll pass you now on to the MC.
Hello. Thank you very much. The podium is set, so please, if you have any questions, please walk to the podium and ask your questions, and I'm sure Kwame will be happy to take them. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Nanette Twahine here. And my question is, when you talk about checking the credibility of the third parties you're dealing with, what are those processes that you can use to vet those third parties?
I think you don't want to work with a company that if somebody just Google their name, you see some red flags. So that's a very simple one, but that's probably not the best one. But you need to first of all look at who's really behind the company. Who are the owners and who are the operators? Sometimes you just see the operators, and the owners, you must know that this is who they are and they are credible people, plus the operators. I think compliance is typically something that's very, so are they tax compliant? Are they in a regulatory industry? And if they're in a regulatory industry, are they compliant with all the regulatory requirements? Another thing that you look out for would be some legal cases that are pending, or any sort of fraud, or any sort of things that are, and there are some tools that you can use to check that in a more comprehensive manner, other than not Google, right? So I think those three will probably, just talking to you now, will probably be some quick things that you can do to validate the credibility of entities that you deal with.
Legal challenges, the team, and then the third one was
So the people behind the company, the owners versus the operators.
Mm-hmm.
Any sort of legal challenges they have, and then compliance with regulatory laws. So if they're in a regulated entity, you can validate that. Do they pay their taxes, tax returns, those sort of things.
Excellent. And then the second question, because a lot of this is high level, and we have many small business owners here. So my question for the financial piece you were talking about, where there are investors who have a demand to invest in companies that are dealing with ESG properly. What do you suggest for a small business owner as far as the products available, approaching a bank? How can a real estate owner use this for their business, use these funds and these loans for their businesses?
I think that the simple thing is to have the capability to think and understand what the people you are approaching, how they are thinking, right? And the first one will be to put together an ESG strategy. So I think I mentioned some of these points here, but then put together a strategy with regards to how you are going to drive your impact, and be aware of the standards that exist, and therefore the standards that you are adopting as a company. If you get into the mind of the principals or the individuals or the entities that are giving those loans, tell what they are looking out for, and you prepare properly for them. I think that helps. But in very simple terms, put your strategy together. Obviously, the value chain with regards to the business you're going to do, because most of the time, green financing is not for profit; it's for impact. So you need to be able to establish and demonstrate that. I mean, I spoke about having evidence to support what you're doing. And those 4 principles that I mentioned, I think as you get the slides, you go through that, you see that your ability to report, the internal control framework that you manage these things through, how you're able to trace the financing and all that, the funds, those will be things that I think people will be looking out for.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, thanks for your presentation. 2 quick questions. Number 1, can you give some insight on the math of a deal that was moving forward, a project that was moving forward without being targeting ESG parameters, and then that same project falling within ESG? Can you give like a percent, a typical average percent that you know of additional incremental costs? And question 2, you guys are a global firm. Can you give us just a couple of checklists of how you vet and select companies to consult with, whether it's deal size, feasibility, traction, or whatever? Just give the people here a little insight on how you decide on who to consult with as clients. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I think with the first question, I'm not going to be able to give you numbers, and I probably want to be able to give you a bit of a framework to just think through, to kind of help you see visually how I mean, the question is, if you're comparing one deal versus the other, one which is green related versus one that is not, what would be the kind of quantum or the value, right? I think in the long term, it's huge. So I'll make that simple statement, and I know it's vague, but I'll try to break it down. If you're taking financing in Ghana, right, in USD without any sort of green involvement, pay between 9 to 12% in Ghana. If you're taking it in foreign currency, okay. If you have the green impact, it'll probably reduce at least by a quarter or half. That's the first one. Now, if you follow the value chain in terms of the use of the funds and adopting renewable energy, sustainable building materials, all these things, what will happen is that you end up in the long run saving a lot. And I made a point earlier, which I want all of us to take, is that when it comes to ESG, it's not short term. You're going to have to really measure it over a good amount of time, say 5 to 10 years, and you see that. So I don't have the numbers, so I don't want to quote any numbers, but I think the support you get is significant. Sometimes the cut can go as high as, close to half, if you have your act together. The second question with regards to vetting deals and all that, I think is very similar to the earlier question. I think I said earlier that third-party risk is probably the biggest risk, because there's so many people hiding behind so many things that they want people who are doing responsible business to mix it up with. Believe me, there's a lot out there. There are so many people looking for something called stamping. They want a stamp of credibility through certain people. And that is why they say, here's the corporate veil. See who is behind it. So very simple. Who are the owners and who are the practices? What of experience do they have around their capital structure? How can you validate over a sustainable period how that capital was built? What sort of practices? I mean, how can I tell you that I'm going to build you a 15 floor building when I've not built a 1-floor building before? Will you really hire somebody who's not built a 1-floor building to build you a 15-floor building? So that experience of performance, business is not always about profits. About, do they have the reputation in that industry for doing that? Typically, if you look, sometimes not too far, you can find a lot, right? A company that is choosing to pay their taxes versus one that is not choosing to pay their taxes is a clear red flag. The kind of board members, corporate governance is everything. If you go back to the slides, one of the critical points that was made on the governance piece is how we do business. The board members and the senior managers that are there, who are they? What have they done before? What sort of decisions have they made before that you can rely on? Now, all the other things about finance, calculation, ROI, and all those things are not as necessary. Anybody can do that. I mean, you can we have models that you can throw those numbers in, it will generate that for you. So that one is very, very easy. You can get kids out of university to just do those calculations for you. But you need to really look deeper. The non-financial matrix, that credibility. Who do they know? Why do they know them? What sort of vendors are they choosing to bring on board? Who are their third parties? Because they have an impact on you. Thank you.